So this is probably the most important course that you will take in your life. Having said that, you can sort of judge for yourselves as we go along. So organization theory is a fascinating course. Anybody can tell me why? Why do you think organization theory is a fascinating course? Very good, very good. Okay. Okay, okay. Anybody? Okay, okay. It teach you some behavioral. So he said moral ethics, you said behavioral ethics. Are there ethics of different kinds? What do you mean by behavioral ethics?
Principles which need to be followed.
Okay, the principles which need to be followed. Okay, okay, okay. Anybody else? Why is this such a fascinating course?
It's a
Unlike,
part
say,
of,
several other courses. Say unlike, say, accounting.
it is also a
Or
part
marketing.
of socialism that we are supposed to follow in our society, that how we carry out ourselves.
Okay, very good. So, good, good. I have two definitive inputs. What else?
Psychological study also.
You already mentioned psychology part of it. People handling skills improve. Okay, that's an outcome. Your people handling skills out, improve. Maybe your ethical part improves. You understand ethics better, maybe, and so on and so forth. But the question was, why is this a fascinating? I'm not talking about the outcome. I'm talking about the construct of the course. Yes and no. You said that? Yeah, it is about understanding people. That not necessarily is the right answer. How do you present yourself? Okay. So you're all talking about outcomes. I am asking you, why is it okay? It's interesting to know more. And said what? Perspectives are different. Okay, percept. Okay, fair enough. And we will kind of arrive at the answer a little later. But for the moment, let me sort of continue. Huh? Okay. Right. So this is 18 EPG 104 after 101, 102, 103. And this is what you want to, this is how the course is structured. So the early part, you're going to talk about, it's divided into three sort of silos, which of course impinge upon each other. The first one is the individual, that is attitude, emotions, moods, and personality is something that we're going to talk about. What is an attitude? What are emotions? What are moods? What is personality? So we will discuss that in some depth, in a little bit of a scientific manner. And then we'll talk about the group. That is people who come together in groups and so on and so forth. So that is motivation. How do you motivate groups of people? So what is motivation? By the way. Okay. To elevate. Okay. 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 But what is motivation per se? Okay. Okay. Urge to listen. Showing them that they can do it. Okay. Okay. What else? Creating interest in people. Very good. Okay.
Creating the positive vibe towards what you want to do.
Creating a positive energy. Okay. Okay. So creating opportunities. Very good. Okay. So a common theme that I see here is something like positive. So is motivation positive? And that's the point I was trying to make. So, the year 1498 is very interesting because 1498, there was this chap called Vasco da Gama who sort of sailed for India. And obviously because the Turks and the Arabs had stopped the spice going through Europe, through Central Asia and Arabia. And so the Europeans wanted to find a sea route. So, and he was funded by Queen Isabella, of Spain. Spain had just come out of several years of occupation by the Arabs. History, of course. And they had a lot of energy going for them. So they decided to launch an expedition to India. So about 3 days into the sea, many of his captains came and said, I think he came with 4 ships, said that, our sailors are saying they don't want to travel to India. They are a little scared. They are disgruntled, dissatisfied. Like you say, sort of, people who are not engaged. They're not engaged in the mission. So what do we do? So Vasco da Gama is said to have said, let's motivate them. And then he said, get everybody together tomorrow morning and I'll address them. So he got all the ships together, not very big ships, and he said, tell me who doesn't want to go to India. Some 20 odd fellows who were the forefront, put up their hands. He said, throw them into the sea. And then he said, after they were thrown into the sea, he said, who else doesn't want to go to India? And what do you think the reaction was? And they landed in the Malabar coast, and then they occupied Goa, parts of Karnataka, and so on and so forth. Eventually, they settled down in what is present day Goa. So I want you to get that out of your mind, that motivation generally is positive, and it's not coercion. But coercion can also be a form of. So first, I think when you go through this course, you need to unblock some of those assumptions that you have made. And like the great Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, FDR said, speak softly but carry a big stick. Yeah, so it works pretty well. I'm sure many times it happens in your organizations as well. They're ready to absorb that much of nonsense, right? So while motivation is good thing, it's positive. Please bear in mind that it also has another side. So we look at motivation, we look at groups and teams. What's the difference between groups and teams? Yeah, why are we sort of delineating it between groups and teams? And then, of course, the big elephant in the room, that is leadership. What is leadership? Why is leadership so important? How is leadership different from being a manager? How is a leader different from a manager? What do they do differently? What do you guys think? Go ahead. Thanks. Okay. Anybody else? Somebody was saying. Leaders create the idea. Managers don't create ideas. They just give the task. Go and get this done. Leader sets a goal. Beautiful. Okay. Managers don't set goals.
A manager is a person who makes the works to get done, but the leader is the person who makes others to get the work done very easily. He will not be like a leader is always sets an example to how to take initiative and get the works done. But here only the monotonous job for manager who just does the work.
Okay, so we'll talk more about that aspect as we come to the leadership part of it. What is the difference in why do we say some people? Why was Mahatma Gandhi? Do you consider him a leader? Give or take, by and large. Yeah. So why do we say Nelson Mandela was a leader? Yeah. Or say Narayan Murthy is a leader. Was Kapil Dev a leader? Yeah. So how do you define leadership in that sense is something that we'll be talking about. How do you really want to be a leader? There's no shame in saying I don't want to be a leader. I can be because the greatest tragedy in life is when ordinary people get into leadership positions and make life miserable for everybody else. They make life miserable for themselves, it's all right. But when they make life miserable for other people, it sort of starts creating a problem. So we'll talk about leadership and then we will come to the organization part where we talk about culture, conflict, structure, diversity. And so that is the general sort of grouping of this particular course. We're talking about the individual, the group, and the organization. Today, we shall talk about two things. I will give you an introduction to organization behavior and why it is so important. And we'll talk a little bit about diversity. That is this part. And why diversity, equality, inclusion, and so on and so forth are. Do you think it's important, diversity? Why? What's the big deal? What equal opportunity? Go ahead. Okay, very good. Anybody else? So he said equality is important. For what's the big deal? I'm reading a book by this guy called Jordan Peterson. He says this is utter nonsense. Companies are meant to make profits. Why do you care about equality and inclusion and what nonsense? I mean, just get the best people and make the most profit and let the best guys win. Yeah, why should we have affirmative action and create quotas and get people into the system and then say we want more women and then by the way, just look at the statistic that less than 10% CEOs in the world are women. Why do you think so? Are they less intelligent than men? They're not given right scope. Society is patriarchal. Is that true? Hmm. Very interesting. Okay, so somebody said that. Very good. Exactly. Good point. So somebody said that scope, I was just looking the IIT JEE rankings for this year. That in the top 20 positions, how many women do you think are there? Zero. So these are interesting questions, right? I mean, so also the fact remains that the IIT JEE paper is almost set by all men. Yeah. So maybe that is making a difference. So it's a larger question of diversity, and should organizations give greater roles for people who come from diverse groups, and why? We've not answered that question yet, so we'll try to answer it as we go along. So this is the structure, and yeah, every sort of topic has some learning objectives, and you must be sort of have nailed these learning objectives by the time you finished with this particular course. So, for example, demonstrate the importance of interpersonal skills in the workplace. Do you think interpersonal skills are important? Yeah. So, define organizational behavior, show the value of OB to systematic study, and so many other things are there. You can have a look at the PPT when you sort of finish with this. Yeah. So what do good managers need? And we'll talk about the manager's point of view, because most of you are either managers already or you hope to become managers, and so on and so forth. So generally, there's a large consensus that for you to be a decent enough manager, you need, first of all, to have, what is emotional quotient? Okay, she said empathizing. You said be strong enough. What is EQ? Okay, people centric.
Like IQ, this is
EQ. Okay. What else?
talks about intelligence.
Act. Don't. So somebody said empathetic. Is it important to be empathetic? What for?
Sorry to interrupt, sir. I think the audio is not coming properly.
I couldn't hear you.
The audio is not coming properly for.
No, is it for everybody or the other people are
No.
able to hear?
No, the Zoom call, we are not able to hear completely. So it's break.
The wave is coming and going. It's like a wave kind of going. Not.
Yeah.
Completely.
Okay, just let's watch for a few more minutes, and then you can also check your own internet connections.
No, I.
Sir,
Hello, sir.
Okay. I'm sure it'll improve.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, your voice is not perfectly audible, sir. Actually,
Correct, correct.
and we are not able to listen the other students what they are saying, and so
That you'll have to come to the class, my friend.
No,
So
no,
I will. You, as long as you're able to hear me properly, that's fine.
no.
Go ahead.
There is a slight issues happening. When you go to another corner. So I'm not sure what was the issue. If you're talking exactly in the middle, we are able to hear. If you're moving in the left side of you.
Okay, I'll try not to move too much.
Yes, sir. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Right. So what is emotional quotient? So somebody said empathy. Somebody else said putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. What else? What else? So that's, I think, a decent enough answer. So emotional quotient talks about, do you understand your own spectrum of emotions? What are emotions that we will talk about in emotions? Are emotions important? Why are emotions important? So the fundamental question that we need to ask is, why are emotions important, first of all? Do they really play a role in any way? It impacts decision making. Very right. It impacts decision making. So there's enough of medical research to show that if the part of the brain that sort of manages emotions is sort of neutralized, then people's decision-making capabilities are impaired. So hence, there's a lot of advice on the fact that don't make decisions when you're either very happy or you're very sad or you're not kind of emotionally distraught state, right? So emotional quotient generally means that you understand your own mental state as far as emotions are concerned, and do you understand emotions of people who you are working with, and final outcome is, can you leverage that? So it's nice to say these things. I want to be empathetic and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, empathy doesn't drive organizations. Yeah. So finally, the business of business is business. Yeah. And you need to make profit. So while we like to say these very interesting things that you should be empathetic, put yourself in other people's shoes and so on and so forth, which are all good things, they have certain limitations, particularly if you are a manager, and eventually you are answerable also to your bosses and other stakeholders, investors, and so on and so forth. So emotional intelligence or emotional quotient, high emotional quotient, is about understanding yourself. How do you react in certain situations? What drives your needs and so on and so forth, as well as how do people that you interact with react to different situations? What kind of emotions do they express? And eventually, how do you leverage that to your own advantage so that you get your job done? Yeah. So good managers should be high on emotional, and then you must be high on IQ. So whoever said that intelligence quotient was not important was talking to his head. Eventually, most organizations that test well. So good example is, say, Google, who puts you through several rounds of. Anybody here from Google? I haven't met too many. Yeah. So they put you through several rounds of interview, and one of the things they're looking at is cognitive strength, your ability to think through a problem using intelligence. Yeah. So technical competence, of course, you must be technically competent to get the job, whether you're an HR or a marketing or finance or whatever you might be, whether you have the technical competence to get a job done. Fortitude and resilience. So do you have, what is fortitude and resilience? Do you have the ability to hang in there and get a job done? Or are you going to run at the first sign of trouble? So Vasco da Gama did not sail back to Lisbon. He said, let me deal with these guys who are creating problems and let's move on to India. Or if there's a problem, can you sort of hang in there and see it? So fortitude and resilience. And eventually, what is organizational intelligence? Okay, what else? Very good. Understanding how the organization, so in my last university, very interesting, we had a new guy came and joined. He was supposed to be doing industry connect. And he was a little bit of a, he had a high sense of ego and self-esteem of his own capabilities. He used to come in a suit every day, nice suit. The first thing he did was to quarrel with the transport in charge. And unfortunately, the transport in charge was very close to the family who owned the university. So the transport in charge made sure this guy never got a vehicle. Yeah, over next 6 months. So after the next 6 months, he was trying to say that I did not do any business because I did not get a vehicle. He was swatted aside and sent home. Had he been a little smarter, he would have figured out who are the movers and shakers in the, maybe the transport in charge was more important than the vice chancellor for his particular role, yeah, or in that particular scenario. So organizational intelligence is something that doesn't come easily for many people. And it involves organization culture as well. And what happens in an organization. So particularly when people like you move from one organization to another organization, I would sort of encourage you to understand what is the DNA of that organization and how it works. And who are the movers and shakers. And they mean it, they need not be the guys with the big designations. Yeah, so it makes good eminent sense to figure out what is the organizational intelligence. Yeah. So a lot of people come and say, actually, this is not right. It should be done in some other manner. But that is the organization's way of functioning. So as long as they're not doing anything unethical, I think you need not sort of bother yourself too much. Every organization has its sense of, has its own quirkiness and so on and so forth. Okay. So that too. All of you to read. Yeah. Okay, so let's go directly, and you have an article. I don't know if you check your WhatsApp, I've sent you assignment number 1, so which you might actually like to look at carefully. Start on it immediately because it's got 6 articles, and you're expected to read those articles, summarize each of them in 200 words, create a document of 1,200 words. So how many words is that? Does not mean 1,190. Yeah, it means 1,200 words, and you create a video of 12 minutes, and where you explain these articles for me very clearly and send it to the email address mentioned there. And this 1,200 words, one doc should be uploaded on the LMS. Yeah, which is part of the year. Yeah. So yes. So you can actually allocate about a couple of minutes to each article, or if you go for 3 minutes for one, 1 minute for the other, I'm fine. But you will have to cover all the 6 articles. And these are little tricky. I mean, they are written by great people. So I suggest that you start working on them. You got exactly 1 month to finish assignment 1. Yeah, I've also given you a rubric that the more you delay, the more number of marks you will lose in terms of your yeah. So if you delay by a week, I will grade only for 27 marks. Yeah, if you delay by 2 weeks, I might grade it only for 20 marks, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and your assignment 2 is a group assignment, right? So you will have to interact with maybe 7, 8 other people to come up with a solution to the case study. Please get along with people well. Don't come to me and say that, guy is rude and he's not listening to me and so on and so forth. Sort out your own issues within your group, please. Yeah. Go and have a beer or something and figure it out. So, manager is someone who gets things done through other people in. So that's the role of a manager. You manage, get things done by other people in a organizations. An organization is a consciously coordinated social unit composed of 2 or more people. So for you to have an organization, you can't be a single person and say, yeah, you need at least 2 people. So I started a consulting operation about 15 years ago with 2 other captains, 3 of us. Eventually, I was sleeping partner for some time, and then I left when I sort of decided to pursue academia. So are they an organization? Yes, still 2 people. Yeah. If 1 more had left, it would have ceased to be an organization. But they are an organization. And so some of the roles that an organization or happen in an organization are planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So all of you know, I think, what is planning. Should you plan? What do you plan for? You plan for several things. Okay, very good. What else do you plan for? You plan? No, I mean job wise. So can you plan for the unknown? So in today's complex world, maybe you need to spend some time on planning for. So this university got away with COVID simply because we were well aware of Zoom and online classes and so on and so forth. But I can tell you that many educational institutions had a very difficult time in navigating those couple of years. So today, can you plan for the unknown? That's what is called a scenario planning. So if you go to say armed forces unit, you will have, they just don't plan, they do scenario planning. Say they lay out a sand pit as large as this room, and then they say, if in a warlike situation, their troops are moving from here, what is the enemy expected to do? The enemy does that, what shall we do? And so on and so forth. So scenario planning is very important. You just don't plan with what you know. You also plan today for unknowns or the unexpected. And if you're not doing that, then you are sort of failing your organization. So very interestingly, if you look at say 1999, when General Musharraf, who recently passed away, he sort of occupied the Kargil Heights. I'm sure all of you know that. And it was a brilliant tactical move. So because India had occupied Siachen, the Pakistanis wanted to sort of return the compliments, and they occupied Kargil. The only problem was that their scenario planning was a bit faulty. They never expected India to use its air force in that particular operation. And had they planned, they might have been a little bit more successful. So there was a blind spot. They assumed that India will not throw in their air force. And when India threw in the air force in that small operation, it sort of was a game changer, and the outcome was entirely different. So today planning is also planning for the unknown. And it's like a game of sort of chess. And if you're a good manager, you would sort of do that. Organizing, leading, of course, we talked about leadership. What is controlling? What is controlling? Yeah, also you sort of want to control deviations, and you want to sort of control, but in today's scenario, what is it that you want to really have your sort of finger upon? If you say control, what do you want to really keep an eye on? That's all normal par for the course. What is it that companies are sort of concerned about? Privacy. Those are, I think, those are commonplace. So so she's saying privacy, is it? You don't want people to invade your privacy. Data protection and so on and so forth. My understanding is that a lot of organizations are concerned about compliances. Are you deviating from mandatory requirements? Right? So are you doing the right things in terms of following the regulations? Are you sort of flouting some regulations and so on and so forth? And I think most of your organizations would have. So are you following the POSH policies? Are your people trained enough? POSH, everybody knows what's POSH. Anybody who doesn't know what's POSH? All of you are aware, right? So are there integrity issues? Are you sort of kind of, in a sense, does your organization accept unethical behavior and so on and so forth? Are issues that companies are, you don't want another Ramalinga Raju or Satyam Computers, or worse, larger issues like Enron. Have you heard of Enron? So I'm surprised because the Enron is one of the largest scams where George W. Bush in the United States, he deregulated energy. And this company called Enron was born, which traded in energy. And so from 1996 till 2001, they were listed as the most innovative organization in America. And their profits went from, say, $10 share to about $70 a share in no time without showing too much of profits. Yeah? And eventually, the bubble burst in 2001, and they found that there was a great deal of fraud in how they were sort of managing their books of accounts and so on and so forth. And a lot of things happened. The upshot of it was that several innocent people lost their life savings, including people who had invested, say, 401k, which is the American social security system, and so on and so forth. All of them lost their money, and it became a huge issue. And these were highly educated people who perpetrated this fraud. So they also found that the auditors had not done their job. So Satyam Computers was something similar in a smaller scale. Yeah. So today, controlling is not about controlling budgets and so on and so forth. I'm sure people manage that pretty well. It's about controlling unethical behavior and so on and so forth. What is unethical behavior, by the way? But some people are saying it's pretty cool, right? We really don't know what it impacts and what it doesn't impact. But if your organizations are saying moonlighting is kind of good to do, I mean, is it all right? Where does this term moonlighting come from? You don't know the term. Yeah, I'm asking you where the new old term came from. No, I know what is moonlighting, sir. I'm asking you where did the term moonlighting? So that is what is curiosity. So all of you have heard about moonlighting, but you don't know where the term comes from, which is rather unfortunate. And I think if you really want to make something out of this program, you should be curious. So very interestingly, in the 1930s, United States had prohibition. You know what's prohibition? Where the manufacture or sale of liquor was banned across the United States. So the mafia, the American mafia in Chicago, New York, and so on and so forth, had a field day. Because as you know, prohibition does not succeed anywhere in the world. What they found was that many people started making illicit liquor at home. Yeah. And they did it in the night so they had a day job. So they might have been a school teacher or a carpenter or a blacksmith, but under the moonlight, they had a second job, which was to manufacture liquor, and then they would sell it, bottle it, and sell it. So hence you have the term moonlighting. Yeah. So moonshine is the whiskey that got created. So when you moonlight and create whiskey, that is called moonshine. And that moonshine was stored in to camouflage it and hide it. It was stored in large boots. That's why you get the term bootlegger. So bootlegging is when they put the moonshine in large boots to hide it. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So you have also got a paper which is very interesting from Henry Mintzberg. And Mintzberg said that you should sort of really delineate what a manager does in a workplace. So what does a manager do? What are the different roles of a manager? Assigning tasks, turning up to the office every day, setting targets, okay? Managing people, appraisals,
People management.
people managers, right? Okay. I assume all of you manage people. You manage anything else? I mean, anybody in the veterinary business? So,
No, we'll manage work first and
sorry, I didn't just repeat that online.
we'll manage work and
Manage work.
people management mostly going to HR and they are taking care of it.
Okay, mostly HR. Reporting to the stakeholders. So, who are the stakeholders? Now, who is that? Define some. Okay. 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 I was waiting for that. Society. So, society is today a very important. So, I don't know how many of you have sort of had a little bit of Jack Daniels. Anybody has? So, Jack Daniels is a very popular American whiskey, right? And it gets its unique taste because it is stored in barrels which are charred from the inside. And so it gets this very smoky and deep flavor. And it's a very popular American whiskey, not appreciated by several people across the world, but it's interesting. So Jack Daniels, whichever city, I think somewhere in Tennessee, they're having a problem because the whiskey apparently gives off a certain bacteria which thrives on that whiskey, and now it covers everything in that town. And it covers cars, it covers houses, it covers people if they're not moving. And then they get a coating, which is very corrosive. And now there's a class action suit by the citizens of that town against Jack Daniels, saying that these people are ruining our lives. So organizations today, sadly, have realized that you have a societal responsibility. So, for example, some of the most popular airlines in the world, passenger carriers, are say Lufthansa, British Air. Now, are they making profits? Definitely yes. If you look at their profit and loss account, they are making profit. But suppose we say, let us take your carbon footprint, yeah, and monetize it. So give a value to your carbon footprint and bring it onto your profit and loss account. What do you think is going to happen? All airlines will end up in red, probably. They may just stop. So these are very interesting questions that are being asked. So when you do accounting, these are questions that are being asked across the world. Should we monetize some of the impact that these people are having on the society at large, on global, say, global warming, climate change, or greenhouse gas emissions, and so on and so forth? So that is why a manager's job is becoming more and more. So tomorrow, if say Lufthansa is told that monetize your carbon footprint, bring it onto your profit and loss account, many people might be without jobs, yeah, or we might have many less airlines across the world, yeah. So right. So some of the roles that, according to Henry Mintzberg, article that you will read, is one of the roles that a manager plays are figurehead. This is the simplest role. Once in a way, I am called to cut a ribbon somewhere. I'm the dean. I'm also a manager. You are also managers. Somebody calls you and says that we are opening a new sports room in our facility. Please come and inaugurate it. You go and get a scissors and cut one ribbon, and everybody has a samosa or something like that. And does it sounds very easy, right? So that is one of the roles that a manager plays. And all of us have to play the figurehead role well. Sometimes you can't say that I will not play the figurehead role. And then the leader, so responsible for the motivation and direction of employees. So there is a lot more to leadership than Henry Mintzberg sort of thought about. But fundamentally responsible for motivation and direction of employees. Liaison, that is, maintains a network of outside contacts who provide favors and so, how many of you as managers network really? How many of you are not on LinkedIn? All of you are LinkedIn? All of you have heard of LinkedIn, I assume. Yeah, so maybe you should activate it. Yeah, it makes good sense. So, maintains a network of outside contacts who provide favors and what kind of favors and information? Business favors, or the police is coming to get you. So you might like to flee and go underground for a while. So, yeah, just joking, but you want information. Information, in a sense, gives you some amount of competitiveness and competitive edge in a very competitive world. Competitive several times. So, liaison, can you maintain a network? Monitor receives a wide variety of information, serves as nerve center of internal and external information of the organization. So, receives a wide variety of information, serves as a nerve center of internal and external information of the organization. So this is a very important role. What do you do when you receive that information? Okay. Yeah, I think the most important thing that you need to do when you receive information that might be relevant is to disseminate it to the rest of the. Somehow Indians are not very good at disseminating information. Yeah, that is, we tend to hold information. I don't know for what particular reason, but dissemination of information to other people who are important stakeholders and who are relevant is very, very critical. So, monitor, disseminator transmits information received from outside or from other employees to members of the organization. So, dissemination of information is a critical role. I think you should develop that skill. I don't think you're losing much by disseminating. And then spokesperson, transmit information to outside on organizations' plans, policies, actions, results, serves as an expert on organizations' industry. So, are you a good? First of all, is it your role to be a spokesperson? Yeah. Yes or no or maybe or whatever. But if it is, then you need to also be a good spokesperson. Suppose you are not designated a spokesperson. Do you still have a role? Yes or no? Okay. So there was this American senior vice president of a investment banking company who was one day found one Sunday morning walking down a road in New York City in women's clothes. So he's a senior vice president. He was found in women's clothes. He was walking down a street. He was summoned, questioned, and fired. What do you guys think? Is it good or not good? Or it was Sunday morning. He was not at work. His own time. What's your point of view? What he says done not correct. He says wearing women's clothes and walking down a right. It's his personal choice. Okay, so we already have a divergent view. He is representing the organization. Okay, so he's a spokesperson in a sense, although he may not have been designated as the. So the case, obviously the case went to court and the court upheld the organization's point of view, saying that this man caused disrepute to the organization because he represented the organization. Whether it was Sunday or Monday, it doesn't matter. Whether he was on campus or at work or not, but he was a As a senior vice president, he was a spokesperson. So please be very clear that you are representing you're representing your organization here. Please understand, yeah. More importantly, you are representing your organization when you take exams. So I want you to be very cognizant of that. Yeah? I'm saying that very seriously. So you are representing your organization at all times. You are a spokesperson. So transmits information, so on and so forth. Decisional roles, searches organizations and its environment for opportunities and initiates projects to bring about, very important role, to bring about so the decisional role. And to be an entrepreneur today, entrepreneurship is not just about being an entrepreneur outside. So you're not going to set up a kirana shop or an IT company or a travel agency. You can also be an entrepreneur within your own. Is it important? Why is it important? Why is it so important to be an entrepreneur within your own organization? Why did Binsberg put it there? Very good. You start showing sense of ownership. What else will you do? You will innovate. Yeah. So today, the role of a person in an organization is to, and that's why people keep crying about innovation and creativity, because you're expected to innovate, create new business opportunities for your organization. Otherwise, you really don't have a role. The good old days of our parents and your grandparents and so on and so forth, where you could just turn up and pass paper from one chair to another chair, table to another table are. So we are going to ask you, what value are you adding by warming that particular chair? I'm sure you will ask me, right? If you, at the end of the day, 3 hours you spent here in my OT class, if it didn't add value to you or didn't make you think differently, you're going to ask me, what value did I get from sitting in your, and I think that's the way forward. You ask as to, or organizations are also going to ask you, what value did you add to the organization? So being an entrepreneur within an organization is very, very, and a lot of organizations. So how do you promote this? So suppose you own a company and you want your employees to ideate and innovate. Give me one strategy that you would use to make this happen. It's a fantastic phrase. How do you make it happen? I'm asking. So Indians are brilliant at ideation. I will get 120 ideas here. I'm asking you, taking you to the next step. Please tell me how you're going to execute this. That is all. We're all clear why it's required. I'm asking you, how will you make it happen? What?
Share the idea and discuss and make it happen.
These are all 50,000 feet. Tell me on the ground, if you were the owner of an organization, tell me one simple method where you will promote, give them good salary. Anything more exciting, anything more basic and exciting. That, okay, I know that you got this kind of, you were at least thinking. These are all, boring and done and dusted. Make him an owner and the idea is not to have an idea. The idea is how to encourage people to
But
So I was, this company called Google fascinates me. So I was looking at what they also talk about innovation and creativity. And I found that one of their HR policies was that if any employee, say, goes and takes a course in scuba diving, scuba diving, right? Very expensive in the US because you need a coach, or you go and become a member of a tennis class, or you go and become a member of how to look after my dog better. They actually reimburse about 60% of the cost because they feel that you are actually learning something new, which is not part. You want to wash your face? Chief? So, can we sort of get people to think and do different things so that they bring it into the. So think of something at the ground level, which is not about money, paying people more equity stocks, giving them more shares, making them owner, as if it sounds all very nice, but really doesn't have any. Do something basic to. Those are all motivation. But really, can you get. So there is something in personality called openness to experience. We look at it when the personality class comes. Are you open to experience? Or are you eating the same food every day? You're following the same road every day. You're wearing the same boring clothes every day. Can you sort of new experiences so that your brain thinks a little differently? And can you bring those different ideas to the workplace? I was fascinated by this thing. You do scuba diving. Can you bring something from scuba diving into the organization? So, brilliant. You can actually learn from several things. So, for example, why did the Titanic sink? That hit the iceberg and those two people on the deck, all that is fine. Why did it, from a more serious point of view, keeping that Caprio and Kate Winslet out of the picture, why did the Titanic sink?
Not proper planning.
Not proper planning. Again, this one, 50,000 feet. So very interestingly, no, I tell you this for a reason. Very interestingly, ships today are constructed differently. And if you look at the interior of a ship, it is divided into tanks. That is longitudinal and vertical. I'll call them walls for simple understanding. So small tanks populate the entire ship. So if it gets holed in one place, water enters that tank and gets isolated. But it was not the case in the Titanic times. In those days, the walls did not extend right up. And because they wanted to save on steel and they wanted to save on, weight, they wanted to make ships faster. So when the Titanic got holed because of the iceberg, water flowed in. And then when the ship sank a little bit more, water would go from one tank to the tank. And then eventually the whole ship was inundated and it sank. And people learned from that. So immediately after that, the ship construction or designs of ships changed where they extended the wall right up. And risk management has taken a lot from that. Today, that's why if there is a problem for an organization, it doesn't spread to the entire organization. They try to isolate high risk area in pockets. They learned something from the Titanic. That's what I'm trying to tell you, that you can actually learn a great deal from other parts of the universe or world and bring it into your workplace and see how it sort of impinges upon your own thinking. But if you're not able to do different things and you're not open to experience, which is a very important personality trait, you are going to have problems. Yeah, because you're not going to be able to innovate or be creative. Yeah? What do you think? You sort of tend to agree with me or you don't? You can feel free to disagree. Yeah. So, so being an entrepreneur in an organization is important. Resource allocator makes or approves significant organizational decisions in terms of, why is this important? Resource allocator. Very good. What else? So why is resource allocation so important? What is the biggest problem with, resources not being allocated properly?
Based on the
Absolutely. So the biggest source of conflict is perceived or real allocation of resources. If resources are not, so you can also have a case where there is conflict, and so resource allocation became a problem. You can also have sort of it coming in that direction, but by and large, unequal resource allocation or unfair resource allocation can actually cause a lot of problems. And then negotiator responsible for representing the organization at major negotiations. So where would you negotiate? Where could you negotiate? Yeah, good. Where else? Hiring, you're negotiating, right? Yes. Firing as well. Yes. Yeah. Huh? Pricing, you're negotiating. Where else?
Quotations.
When you're making quotes, okay, good. Quotations. So you're negotiating. You're not able to meet deadlines and so on and so forth. You renegotiate. What else? Nobody here from manufacturing. So what do you negotiate in? Whom do you negotiate with? If you're a manager, whom do you negotiate? You negotiate trade unions. I was waiting for that. Yeah. So do you negotiate with trade unions? So today you people are born in a very boring age. But when I was growing up, the trade unions were an important part of the scenario, and they were provided a lot of excitement because you had large organizations. Say, for example, my father used to work in a place called Hindustan Shipyard Limited, which had 20,000 workers. They built ships, and fascinating because most of those workers sat under a ship and played cards the whole day. And they were sort of represented by a union leader who was affiliated to a political party. And they had a minister sitting in Delhi. And so it was, and they would negotiate on more wages, less work, indiscipline, discipline, and so on and so forth. And it was fascinating time. So if you were a senior manager, you would always have to negotiate with workers. And I think many of you have missed that. What has happened to the trade union today? Organize and don't entertain them only. Just swatted them aside. What industry? No. Rather manufacturing. They're not in the cargo industry. Yeah, so he's manufacturing something. What do you manufacture? You build machines. No, the question that I asked is why have all these people not heard of them? Why? It's a very interesting case. So, if you look at one of the big car manufacturers in Bengaluru is our friends, Toyota Kirloskar, and they went through a lot of labor issues because they had a labor union, they had contract labor, and so on and so forth. And I followed that case very interestingly because Toyota, as you all know, is a Japanese organization. And the first sparks, I think, were lit because the Japanese said that your bathroom break can only be 3 minutes. And our guy said, no, a bathroom break should be about 15 minutes where we can, go leisurely and then smoke a cigarette or two and then talk to our friends and relatives and then return to work. Who do you think was more reasonable here? 3 minutes or the 15 minutes? The Japanese didn't have that point of view. Huh? And since they called the shots, they decided that, and then there was a little bit of indiscipline, so they fired a few guys, and the union got involved, and the union said that, look, we will go on a not only a strike, they called it, it's called a wildcat strike. That is, we go on strike from now. And so they went and sat outside and shouted slogans against those Japanese fellows and various other things. I think without fully knowing where Japan is actually. But anyway, so that happened. What do you think how do you think the Toyota management responded? What do you think they did more substantively? They bought literally they bought a big locked the gate and said, we declare a lockout. Yeah. And said, you keep shouting. So what do you think the workers will do now? It's like a game of chess. What do you think the workers will do? They threw some stones and threatened people and so on. So these guys summoned the police. Next, what happens? So then now there was a stalemate. So somebody got a bright idea that there is a Vidhan Sauda and we all vote. Let us go and meet the labor minister. So they all made a beeline and they, of course, the labor minister, because they all constitute votes, he heard them patiently and so on. But he said, absolutely, I fully support you. And I am going to solve this and bring the Japanese into line and so on. But he must have given one speech and sent them and called for a negotiation and said 1 week hence at 10:30 in the morning, Monday morning at Vidhan Sauda, you will all turn up for a. And guess what happened? So the workers came. The Toyota management did not come. So then they called the Toyota management, where are you? They said, we feel unsafe, we are not coming. So now there was again a little bit of a stalemate. And they said, okay, we will hold this meeting next week, again at 10 o'clock, you will all come for a meeting. So again, the workers turned up, the Toyota management said, we're not coming for negotiation. It's very interesting. Now it was already probably a month had gone. They were running the plant with contract labor. The regular guys are sitting outside and shouting. There is no salary. So they then approached the chief minister. So chief minister, I think, took it a little seriously. He called the Toyota management, who told him that, you know, if you guys wag your tail too much, we will shift this plant out of Karnataka and go and set it up in Gujarat or Maldives or wherever we feel like. What do you think happened next? Everybody went back to work. Yeah. This was not possible, say, about 30 years back, right? What do you think has changed in India? There was more lack of employment at that time. What is fundamentally changed? The rise of the multinational. Yeah, just to give you an understanding, Google's market capitalization, give or take, is bigger than the GDP of Pakistan. Just think about it. Yeah, the market capitalization of Apple is almost that of India's. That is how large these organizations are. And the union is really not in any position to take on. They can bully a few public sector fellows, but not multinational corporations. So, but negotiation has shifted. In those days, mostly the job of negotiation was negotiating with trade unions, but as you people rightly said, involves a great many other things today. And you better be good at negotiation. So let me quickly recap. So you're talking about 9 things, figurehead, or 10 things, sorry, figurehead, leader, and liaison. Those are the interpersonal roles. Your informational roles are to monitor, to disseminate information, and to be a spokesperson. And your decisional roles are to be an entrepreneur, to be a resource allocator, and to be a negotiator. And you must be able to do all these roles well if you want to be a successful manager. Yeah. So, yeah. So again, broadly talking about away from Henry Mintzberg. So what are management skills, technical skills? Obviously, all of you must have technical skills. What are you going to? So Google says that when I select a person, the first thing that we check is if we leave him alone, can he manage his technical skills? Yeah, suppose he's taken as a software engineer, can he do? No, I got selected into, I played table tennis for my state. So no, I thought I was supposed to play table tennis here. That is not going to happen in. So people are pretty clear why they get somebody on board. And I think you should also be clear, why are you joining an organization? So technical skills, the ability to apply specialized knowledge or expertise. All jobs require some specialized expertise, and many people develop their technical skills in the job. That's fair enough. Human skills, the ability to work with, understand, and motivate other people. And conceptual skills, the mental ability to analyze and diagnose complex, very important. Yeah. So for example, there's a very interesting Harvard article which says that, say, if you had gone to a top 5 universities in the world, say had you gone to MIT for engineering, or you had gone to Stanford for entrepreneurship and computer science and so on, had you gone to Carnegie Mellon for artificial intelligence, and then you had also studied, say, you had gone to computer science in Carnegie Mellon, which is a top flight university for AI and machine learning and so on, and you learned AI and machine learning at Kamawari Sangha on Kanakpura Road. Is there difference in the quality of education? By what percentage? I like this Kamawari Sangha. It's a good building. But just took it as an example. Yeah. Please excuse me. If somebody went to that university, college, anybody went to that college? It's there on the Kanakpura Road. Yes, sir. What do you think is the difference in the quality of or the inputs you're going to receive? So they did some study. Okay, Americans are good at these things. They came up with a number. They said that if you go to a top flight university, the difference between you and somebody who went to a not very good college is about 30%. Yeah, everything else being equal. But they interestingly said that over time, that 30% is negated. By what? Why do you not see all IITians or all IIM guys make it really to the top? What is at play here? Experience, okay? What else do you think is at play here? Implementation of the learning, okay? So the paper says that this is at play here. So they say that a lot of people who go to top flight institutions develop this arrogance. And they develop this inability to work with other people or work in teams. And in some senses, empathize with other people and so on and so forth, which actually reduces the impact of that 30% first mover advantage that they had in terms of education. So please understand that if you really want to be successful, technical skills are important, the conceptual skills are important, but so are the human skills. You need to be able to get along with people. You need to be able to drive teams. You need to be able to form groups for the right reason, not one smokers group or something. Yeah, a group which will sort of ideate and come up with better ideas and so on and so forth. So management skills are all three, and you must have them in good measure. In fact, a lot of people who, we had this past president called APJ Abdul Kalam. What do you think about him? What do you think about APJ Abdul Kalam? He was president of India, very popular. Many people say he was a great visionary. Yes. So I had an uncle who worked for a long time at ISRO and worked very closely with Abdul Kalam. And Abdul Kalam actually wrote a foreword for a book that my uncle published. My uncle was a top class engineer with a PhD from IIT Kharagpur. So I asked him once, Kalam, what kind of an engineer was he? And he said he was totally useless. But he was brilliant as and also pretty good maybe at conceptual skills. And look where it got him. Yeah. So sometimes we overvalue the technical skills part of it and the conceptual skills part of it while ignoring the human skills part of it, which are critical as you rise in organizations. In fact, I think the human skills become more and more important or crucial in how you are going to be perceived by different people. And Kalam actually also come to our university, and he was great. The way he galvanized all the students and spoke to them and motivated them was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So you must understand that if you don't have great human skills, please work upon it. Yeah. How do you interact with other people? Can you be part of a team? So today, you can't say you're not a genius. I don't see any Nobel Prize winners here. You're not going to win the next Nobel Prize as far as I can see. Yeah. If you do, we'll be very proud of you. Otherwise, please learn to operate in teams. Otherwise, you're not going to really survive. Yeah. So before we sort of take a quick break, yeah. And there was this guy called Fred Luthens. Luthens came up with a very interesting study, and he said that let us try to define who is a manager, who is a good or effective manager, and who is a successful manager. Listen to this carefully. Yeah. He said, who is a manager who manages things? Who is a successful manager? And who is a effective manager or successful manager? Yeah. So what would you want to be? Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody just wants to be a manager? So Luthens carried out this study, and he tried to see what are the attributes of different kinds of people. So what does a normal manager do most of the time? What does a normal manager do most of the time? You have to pick from there. So he said, yeah, absolutely. So no brainer. He said normal managers look at traditional management, and he said that what do good managers do well? Good and effective managers, what do they do well? They communicate well. But then he found across longitudinal studies that the most successful managers, what did they do? Networking is critical. Yeah, networking is critical for your success. So like Napoleon, the great Napoleon Bonaparte said, I don't want good generals. I want successful generals. I don't care how you win a war. I don't care what kind of tactics you know or don't know. I want you to win. That's the only story. So which brings us back. Why are less than 10% women in the CEO group. It's found one of the reasons is that, and I think she was right when she said that women, because they have serious role conflict, they not only have a full day job where they're expected to perform like a man, evening they have to rush off home and do some cooking or look after kids or make them do homework or look after their mother-in-law / father-in-law, husband, and so on and so forth. Well, what can men do? They can leave the office and go to a pub. And then, not always, but the opportunity in Japan, it's a known practice. In Japan, you're supposed to give up work and then go to the nearest bar and then drink with your. And it's no secret that Japanese organizations have very few women. Yeah. So, very interesting article again. I can fish it out from somewhere. They've done a lot of studies. They say women lose out on the networking part. They are not able to effectively network, which costs them a seat at the table. Yeah. But so those women who are able to network well also seem to rise. So it's a choice. It's a career choice. So my short stint in an IT company as director HR came to an end because my boss wanted me to sit with him every day evening and drink. Yeah, which was not what I was looking out of for life. Yeah, so it came to a little bit of an end. I think academia gained because of my boss. And then the next job I took was in a university. But having said that, this is possibly one of the reasons why. So if you want to be a successful manager, please remember, you need to build robust developmental, not make friends with the Mukambika hotel owner or something. He's good. I mean, he's a good guy. I like him, but not necessarily he's going to help you in your career. You need to sort of be a little smart in what kind of a network you are going to build and develop. Yeah. Any questions on this? So you can actually see here average managers, successful managers, and I think you should pay some attention to this slide. So you can look at successful managers and you can see that 48% of the time they are no, so you can actually choose. You can say that maybe I don't want to be so successful. I really want to do something. I will communicate and be an effective manager. I need not be, but I may not get promoted or I may not make it up the ladder. So I'm really good at my job. I got gold medal in my engineering, but I remained assistant manager for the rest of my life. You can attribute it to some of this stuff. Yeah. You have, there are certain other smart people, like you rightly said, who seem to be doing no work, but are getting promoted because I think that they are networking, is planning for next opportunity and so on and so forth. But whatever it is. So this is not an anecdote. This is a serious study carried out by Fred Luthans, who's a professor in America. And he has come out with this kind of framework. So should we take a break? So we started at 1:30, right? So we'll meet again at what time? 3:10. Huh? I can give you break till 4:30 also. No skin of my nose. Okay, 3:15. So guys online, we're taking a break by popular demand. They want to say 3:15, so we'll be back at 3:15. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Get along with the class. Actually, I used to ask my MBA students in the year 2012-13 when they used to pay us a fees of 15 lakhs in 2012. Yeah, as to how much are you actually paying per minute? And then I think the penny used to drop a little bit. So, shall I continue? So, we were here, and then recording. So, the what is organization behavior? And this definition is rather important. Guys online, if you're not muted, please mute. So organization behavior is a field of study that investigates the impact that individuals, groups, and structures have on behavior within organizations for the purpose of applying such knowledge towards improving an organization's effectiveness. Fundamentally, what do you bring in across different fields to improve an organization's effectiveness? Yeah. Right. So they're using the word effectiveness. What is efficiency, effectiveness? Are they different? How are they different? Yeah. Yeah, and reducing your costs and so on and so forth. So they're talking about effectiveness, getting the job done. So if you look at the military, they generally talk about effectiveness. Can we sort of accomplish our? So when they say go and take Tiger Hill, it's not about what is the cost. It's about getting the job irrespective of the cost. Yeah. So what is OB? It's a systematic study of behavior. The importance is systematic. We're not talking about anecdotal behavior. So this is all deeply research based. These are not stories. This has been studied for a length of time, generally longitudinal studies. What do you mean by longitudinal studies? That is, so for example, Harvard carried out a very interesting experiment. They brought a lot of 5-year-old children into assume all of you are 5-year-old children. The exercise was very simple. They, in front of each kid, and this was a observable room. So they were observing from outside. In front of each kid was placed a marshmallow. That is a very American sweet. And the kid was told simply the following. If you leave the marshmallow alone, after 10 minutes, you will get another marshmallow. Yeah. Or a bigger marshmallow. But if you sort of take it and eat it, then you've taken and eaten it. And they observed. So they found that several kids did several things. Some kids took it immediately and ate it. Some kids licked it a little bit and kept it back for some time. And then again did the following. About 10% kids left it alone. But the experiment didn't stop there. They then tracked all these people across several years. They found something interesting. Those people who had not eaten the marshmallow actually did better professionally. So that's a longitudinal study. They did the study across 30 years in tracking these kids to see how they did. I'm not talking about personal life. I'm not talking about happiness, unhappiness. I'm talking about pure professional. So it seems to show that if you can sacrifice the short term for the long term, you are more successful professionally. Yeah, maybe also happiness wise, I'm not sure. Professionally, definitely a lot of studies have been done. And it shows that if you're able to sacrifice the short term for the long term, you do much better. So that is a longitudinal study where they looked at 30, 40 years. So OB is a systematic study and it has deep research. It's evidence-based management, complements systematic study, and then empirical studies are tested out. Like I said, these people are tracked. So the hypothesis is that people who wait for bigger things do better in life is commonsensical, but can it be tested on the ground? And they did test it, yeah, and across 30 years. Are used for managers to make decisions based on evidence. Yeah, how else can you make decisions? So for example, so just listen to me carefully. So if a bat and a ball cost $1.10 and the bat costs $1 more than the ball, what is the cost of the ball? So that is non-evidence based management. Because human beings mentally are generally lazy. And why did you say 10 cents? Because it was an easy answer and looked obvious to you. Actually, the answer is 5 cents. All you need to do is to write one nice XY equation and you'll figure it out. But most people will say, because it's convenient. You don't have to put any pressure on that piece of machining. So there's a book called Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And it's a very interesting book. You should read it. Yeah? It talks about how people make horrendous mistakes because they refuse to think. Yeah? So evidence-based decision making is critical. And then intuition, systematic study, and EBM add to intuition or those gut feelings about why do I do and what makes others take. So intuition, how many of you express intuition? So have you intuitively taken, have you said that, okay, I like Dayanand Sagar University, or I find the dean a very handsome person, so I'm taking admission. Was that your decision, or you did more work? Either way, you would have landed here. Yeah, but the fact of the matter is that, so for example, when I look at my life, I made a very intuitive decision to marry the woman I married. I made a decision in about 30 seconds, and it turned out well for me. It was gut feeling. When I bought my house, on the ship as captain, I used to be I would fall back on evidence-based management. And so it is a good mixture, yeah, in a sense. But don't undermine that. So if you feel uncomfortable of something, then pay attention to it. Why are you feeling? Sometimes you feel uncomfortable when you meet people. Your six senses are telling you something, but you tend to ignore it and don't take it into cognizance and move on. So OB is all these things. And then you're using OB uses a lot of data, yeah, and so on and so forth. So organization behavior is a fascinating area because of the following reason. We use evidence-based management, we use intuition, we use data, which is sort of when you do quantitative research and then you use complex research tools, or sort of if somebody goes on to do a PhD sometime later, then you will understand what is research methodology. You have a course in the third semester and then you will come to know more about it. But you can actually slice and dice data to give you new insights into what is sort of really happening. So for example, does a single individual make better decisions or a group of people make better decisions? How do you know? Also depends on what decision you are making, but by and large, people have generally ascertained that groups of people making a decision, groups of well-informed people making a decision is much better than. Yeah. So why is OB fascinating? I started my sort of lecture with this question. And the reason why organization is fascinating because it is the only course or only field of study that draws extensively from several known scientific areas like psychology, social psychology, sociology, and anthropology. Yeah, and this is the only sort of field of study. What does it get from anthropology? What is anthropology? What is Have you heard of anthropology? Absolutely. So you get culture, organization culture. Where does it come from? What is culture? First of all, how do you define culture? A behavior of a group of people. Yeah, so generally culture, good. Culture comes from shared experiences. And that is why India has a culture which is distinct from, say, American culture. In what way? How are we different from Americans? So when you talk about food habits, it's a very artifact of culture. So for example, so when I was captain, I had a badge here which had 4 stripes, which makes me captain. So suppose I have 3 stripes, does it make me non-captain? Technically, yes, because of the uniform, but I still remain captain. So these are artifacts. For example, so if say this lady came with a salwar kurta or say a sari, next class, and this lady came with a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, is she more modern than this one? So that is a mistake that people make. These are all artifacts or outward shell of something, and you would actually be more careful in investigating a little. So one of the biggest artifacts of culture is language. Yeah, and that's why when say you come to Bengaluru and somebody asks you, can you speak Kannada, and you say Kannada gottilla, it annoys the Kannadiga. Not that you don't know his language. The actual reason why he is annoyed is you are not participating in my culture. You are not interested in knowing my cultural richness. I have a great culture. You are unaware of it. The only way you can study a culture is through language. There is no other way you can study a culture. Yeah, we are able to identify with American culture because we know English. Yeah, so these are very interesting things, but these are artifacts. But culture has got deep nuances. For example, how are we different from Americans has not been answered yet. What is the differentiator? And that is in the value system. For example, if I asked you, what is it that you value the most? What will you say? Relationship, family, right? Very good, excellent. You sort of spot on. What is it that an American values? If you're going to ask him, will he say relationship and family? What does he value? No. Independence. An American will say independence and freedom. And that is why it is very difficult to take a gun away from an American. Because he has tied that gun to his freedom. And the moment you touch that, you are touching his freedom of action. Yeah. He is not talking. India is not so great on freedom and independence. We are more connected with family and that is why culture is so. So when you go to new organizations, you must understand the culture because the value systems shift. And you are talking about a certain value system, which makes no sense to people who are already there. They are interested in some other. And that is why actually people, so for example, Pakistanis are much closer to us than Americans are. It makes more sense to relate to them because they're culturally very, as is a Sri Lankan or a Bangladeshi, other than an American who is actually very different, or a Norwegian or a Swede. And when we, please remind me, maybe the next class we'll talk a little bit more about national culture. How do cultures differ across nations? What distinguishes, why do you find it so difficult to go and live in Sweden? Or you want to go and live in the UK? Yeah, it's nice. You can see the sights for some time, but then when you have to deal with their culture, it is very, very, or Australia for that matter. What makes the Australians tick? So anthropology, sociology, what do you get from sociology? Teams, groups, yeah. Yeah, and what do you get from psychology? Personality, motivation, yeah, all come from moods and so on and so forth come from how do you manage diversity, all come from. So that is what makes organization behavior a fascinating subject because it draws heavily from well-researched different areas and then brings us all together, giving you one heady, very interesting cocktail in the non-alcoholic sense. It's mocktail. Yeah. So actually, you can when I share the slide, you can see, and so you're looking at psychology. You're talking about learning, motivation, personality, emotions, perception, training, blah blah, social psychology, anthropology, values, culture, cross-cultural analysis, organizational culture, organization environment, power dynamics. How do people, play off in power games with each other? Yeah. So, yeah, I think I've given you a brief and good understanding of organization behavior. Why is it so important? Please feel free to go and get yourself a good copy of Stephen Robbins. Yeah, go and if you feel empowered, go and get a new copy. If you're not so empowered, then get a second-hand copy. But it's important to get because like I said, this is the most important course you're ever going to do in your organization behavior by Stephen Robbins. And for some of you, and there's also some, e-copies floating around, I think. And I can mail you an e-copy maybe. But I would suggest go and get a copy and read it nicely. Stephen Robbins, STE. So in India, it would be Stephen Robbins, Timothy Judge, and I think Sanghi. Yeah. So Robbins, Judge, and Sanghi. Or if you feel really rich, you can get the American edition, which will set you back by about $70, $80. Go to next slide. So we will move on now to diversity. Yeah. And yeah. So diversity in organizations. You take the chair. So diversity in organizations. Why is diversity important? So that question we have to nail first of all. So quick, I'm going to sort of zip through this. But why are we talking about diversity? Why is it important? Why do people talk about that? It's nice. It's nice to have different kinds of people, right? What else? Equal opportunity is a nice thing. Yeah. What else? Why do organizations sort of keep talking about this?
Equal opportunity to everyone.
Very good. Yes.
Diversity brings different thoughts.
Diversity brings different thoughts. Excellent. Yes. Diverse teams perform better. That is what you think. Okay.
Diversity creates innovation and creativity.
Okay. Diversity creates innovation and so on. And you want to have different different inputs. Yeah. So again, I think all of you are right. So fundamentally, people believe that diversity generates new ideas. And today is an age of ideation and innovation, right? Ideas drive creativity and innovation. And without creativity and innovation, you will sort of, so for example, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So till the 1980s, and for people who are older, so I grew up on Kodak film. You see it around. So in the 1980s, Kodak had a 90% market share. Yeah, 90%. And then, there was a guy like me sitting and then with the legs on the table smoking a cigar. And there was some young person like you who came and said that, look, there's something new in the market. And it is called the digital camera. And so the old guy who was a very senior in the organization said that, just forget it. You've got 90% market share and no digital camera is going to. This was about 1990. In 20 years, they filed for bankruptcy. Yeah, by 2010, Kodak had. That is the unfortunate truth about ideation. Yeah, if you don't ideate well, you're actually a sitting duck for disruption and competitors, and they're going to have you for breakfast. Yeah, so it's a good lesson why companies are desperate for new ideas, new businesses, new lines of thought, new creativity, new innovation, and so on and so forth. And so today people believe there is no empirical evidence still to show that inclusiveness and diversity actually aids in. There is absolutely no evidence. But intuitively, a lot of people feel that if you are diverse, give off better. Instead, there is a lot of evidence to show that very diverse organizations have conflict. Yeah, because actually, if you go to the armed forces, you go to say get selected to the NDA or the Combined Defense Services examination. If your father or mother is in the armed forces, you get some extra weightage because they want homogeneity. They are not interested in maverick fellows who bring different ideas. No, you sort of fire at that. No, I'll fire in this direction. It's not something that the armed forces is really interested in. But organizations are interested in something like that. They want people to play the devil's advocate. They want people to come up with new thoughts and ideas so that you get new innovative ideas. So that's the reason for diversity. But however, it comes with its own set of problems. So some of the things that you should be aware of are the two major forms of workplace diversity. What are those? Demonstrate how workplace discrimination undermines organizational. So today discrimination is a big thing. You can't discriminate with. So what kinds of discrimination can you have? You can have gender discrimination. You can have color discrimination. You can have religious discrimination. you can have regional, you can have language discrimination, you can have financial, you can have age discrimination. Yeah, you can have in more sort of forward-looking organizations, you can have discrimination based on sexual orientation, which is a
Physical.
big thing nowadays. The LGBTQ movement and so on and so forth. You know, if somebody sitting next to you suddenly comes and announces, "I am gay," how will you react? You can't smile and keep quiet. You have to say something. Yeah. So that's the point. Yeah. And what you need to say is, "I'm cool about it." Yeah, because if you say anything else, it will be termed as, obviously you can't go and hug the guy. Yeah. But if you say that, "No, I don't like you, stay away from me," it is going to be, you need to be a little careful. Yeah? About how you express your thoughts. Because today, so one of my friends was telling me that when she was working in America, she told her American boss, that lady who was very pretty, my friend was also a lady. She said that lady was very pretty, and she's a straight person. She said that lady who's very pretty has not come to the meeting. So the boss was a little upset. He called her later and said, "So by saying that, do you mean other people are not pretty?" So it's a problem. So in today's world, you need to be very careful how you, in India, actually, you can get away with a lot of stuff. You can get away with a lot of stuff, but I think if you deal with multinationals and so on and so forth, you better be a little cautious in what you say. Otherwise, it can tantamount to discrimination. And describe how key biographical characteristics are relevant to organization. Biographical characteristics are, age, yeah, gender. Also, if you go really deep down, say your strength can be a differentiator, or are you challenged in some sense, or is the person challenged in some sense in terms of, say, cognitively or physically, and so on and so forth. Is an organization inclusive enough to include all these people? And really, do you want to do that? Do you want people who sort of are not physically? So, say, for example, the Indian Army believed in diversity. Can they go and recruit people without legs or hands or something? And say, fly a plane. So these things have a little bit of, what kind of role can you put them into combat roles? Yeah. So in fact, the ancient Greek Spartans, yeah, the Spartans actually, if a child was not born healthy, because every male child was supposed to become a warrior, and if the child was not fully fit, it was rarely allowed to survive. Yeah. So and I think most armed forces still operate in that fashion. So really doesn't apply everywhere. So demonstrate the relevance of intellectual and physical abilities to OB. So how do organizations manage diversity? That is the big point, actually. So talking about diversity is very interesting. How do you manage it is very challenging. Yeah. Because people can come up with their own version of how they see things and what actually their value systems allow them. And so how do organizations navigate this kind of their understanding, the organization's understanding, the law of the land, all these, and the boss's understanding. So all these. So for example, there was a case with, I think, one of the IT companies, not the big ones in India, but a smaller one in America, where they hired a lady from Bangalore and Bengaluru. And the lady in America, the lady turned up for work on the first day, and she says, "Start up, that I want to, can I sit on the ground floor?" The manager asked her why. And she said that, "I'm expecting a baby." So this manager immediately runs to the HR and says that, "Did this lady say that she's expecting a baby?" The HR manager says, "No." She said, "She's expecting a baby. What do we do?" So between them, they decided they fired the. Was that discrimination? So she went to court and she won a large amount of money and stayed at home after that. Yeah. So the fact of the matter is that your understanding of law is not good enough. Your understanding of discrimination and correct law of the land is more important. You cannot discriminate on with people sort of carrying a baby or whatever and say that we don't want you in our organization, or at least you can't say it upfront. Yeah. I think she would have gone to labor court. So labor court in Bengaluru itself has got some 10,000 cases. So she would have been 10,001. And it would have, the saga would have continued. Correct. It would have taken a long time. But America, being America, is much quicker, and they dispense justice. No, but these were Indians in America. All three were Indians in America. Yeah. This would not have happened within America, because I think the Americans are fairly cognizant of it. They understand. They're very careful people, actually. Yeah. So yeah. Right. So when you look at diversity, it has two parts to it. One is what is called as surface level diversity. So the question I asked you, if you don't know anything about two women, one turns up in a sari, the other turns up in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, do you assume that the one in a jeans and t-shirt is more modern? Unfortunately, it happens all the time. Yeah, these are artifacts of culture. Yeah, the way we dress is a artifact. Yeah, is an artifact, and you get sort of labeled and then stereotyped. That then various other labeling means what? Oh, she's a behenji, so she comes in a sari. Yeah, and things like that. The modernity lies in the head. Modernity is not reflected in the kind of clothes you wear. So if you are really concerned in trying to find out how modern a person is, then you have to go to deep level diversity, and that's why good organizations conduct serious psychometric tests. Yeah, we'll come to the psychometric tests a little later when we do personality. But if you're really concerned as to what a person's mindset is, then you have to go much deeper rather than looking at dress, how they speak, where they come from, what kind of you can have a person who's very modern in their dress, but is pretty conservative in their thought process. Yeah, and vice versa. You can have somebody who looks very conservative, but can be very modern in their thought process. I'm just giving you an example. You can extrapolate that into several areas. Then you can look at the difference between deep level surface diversity, surface level diversity, and deep level. And people get into problems all the time. Yeah, because they look at they want to finish interviews, or they have got something in their mind, and then they see somebody wandering along who looks like what they imagine or want. So, for example, when you look at a soldier, what do you think first? He's very fit, or he's courageous, or so these are all again stereotypes. Which may or may not. What you need to do is actually to do proper evaluation and testing to figure out whether this person really fits into that mold or not. Yeah, and then make an assessment. So diversity is important, but managing diversity is more important, because you can actually have serious problems once you get different kinds of people into your. So, for example, if you say, I want to be very egalitarian and I want gay people in my organization. Excellent, good for you. How do you manage these people? So, one of my friends was telling me that when they set up their first office in Bulgaria, they had the company had a policy of taking transgenders. And the problem started on the first day itself when the women said this transgender is coming to our washroom. So they called this person and said, please go to the men's washroom. Then the men complained. Now they didn't know what to do. Yes, somebody should have applied their mind, and so eventually they had to sort of build another, at great cost and trouble, they had to build another washroom for, especially for people who are of neither gender. So it's good to have diversity, quotas, quotients, and so on and so forth. Also affirmative action, when you take people in quotas, are you doing enough to really see that they're very tragic? Say what happens in the IITs and so on and so forth, where you have quotas. No, a quota, right? You get people in through quotas, but are these people helped to cope? No, they just, once they come in, they are thrown into the general pool and they struggle. Yeah, they struggle because you are now competing against some of the brightest minds in the country and you're not prepared. So when you create diversity, can you create safe zones for people who are a little different to operate in your environment? Or you just say, I've ticked all the boxes in diversity and so be it. Yeah. So discrimination is to note a difference between things. Unfair discrimination assumes stereotypes about groups. So what is a stereotype? So for example, when I was growing up, a common stereotype was all North Indians are very strong, all South Indians are very intelligent, which is utter nonsense. Yeah, you can have weak North Indians and you can have stupid South Indians, or vice versa. Yeah, so that I think that stereotype has sort of is going away with your generation because there is more intermingling and interaction and so on and so forth. Otherwise, in the good old days, all South Indians were Madrasi and all very brainy people. Mathematics, they do well mathematics. Yeah, but so any other stereotypes you have come across that you can think of? Please be careful. I don't want anything political. No, don't say it then.
You understood that.
I want some harmless stereotype. So he's saying that's only a stereotype. It's not true. Girls, women multitask is actually proven by research that they are better at multitasking than. So there's no doubt about that. What else? What other kinds of stereotype? Very good. All English people speak English. All people in the United Kingdom speak English. Yeah, which is not true again. So yeah, so you get the idea generally. What is a stereotype? Stereotype thread describes the degree to which we agree internally with the general negative stereotype perceptions of our groups, can be combated by treating employees as individuals and not highlighting group. So stereotyping and labeling can become very, very dangerous because, in organizations, you got a lid on it. But if you look at extreme cases, for example, let me give you two. One is Mr. Adolf Hitler, who between, say, the late 1920s to 1939, first said that all Jews are anti-Germany, they are not patriotic, and then they slowly started labeling them as, so stereotyping and labeling go hand in hand. They labeled them as rats. Yeah, they started calling them as Jew rats. And it ended up in about 6.5 million of them getting killed in concentration camps and so on and so forth. And there was another guy called Pol Pot in the late 80s. In the 80s. So Pol Pot was an interesting fellow. Pol Pot was educated in France. He was a modern guy. He went back to this country called Cambodia, which is now called Kampuchea. And he decided one day that we must return to the glorious days of Cambodia, which is an agricultural country. And somebody asked him, so people didn't take him seriously. And somebody asked him, how are you going to do that? And he said that the problem with our country is that there are too many educated. So they said, okay, so what are you going to do with people? So he said, one day he called his army and he said that line up all the professors. They said, okay, so they bought all the professors. He said, kill them. So all the professors were killed. And he then said, please identify all teachers in this country. So anybody who taught anything was shot. And then after that, he said that anybody who has got glasses must be reading something. So it's not a laughing matter. Yeah. So about 10 million people were killed by Mr. Pol Pot before he was put to rest, actually. And you have got mad people like this running around who can actually stereotype label, and it is a disaster for many families and many people. I went to Cambodia just after, then it was invaded by Vietnam, where they kicked Pol Pot out. It's a tragic, it's a beautiful country just off Vietnam. I went just after their civil war. Really sad state of affairs. Yeah, so you can have one person who can actually influence the fortunes of a whole country or a society if he is able to speak the correct language. So that is why. So there was the greatest recent genocide happened in a country called Rwanda and Burundi. I don't know whether you've heard about it, but this is an African country, two countries called Rwanda and Burundi. They came together. The British, being the British, they colonized them, divided them into two parts called the Hutus and the Tutsis. How did they do that? By the length of the nose. They actually went and measured the nose, and they said, if you got short nose, you're a Tutsi. If you got a long nose, you're a. And eventually, when the British left after several years, these two people fought. There was a general massacre. Several million people again died because of inability to get on with other people. Yeah. So DEI is the new buzzword: diversity, equity, and inclusion. All of you know that. And how do organizations face this? So, for example, Coca-Cola is a strong believer in DEI, but there's a pushback. Why is there a pushback? So, for example, if you take off all quotas in the selection to the IIMs, what kind of people do you think will get in? Say, IIM Bangalore, IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Calcutta. Suppose there are no quotas at all. What kind of people will get in? Huh? So people have found, and they've done some extrapolation, they say that mostly you will have engineers from the IITs, yeah, who will make it. But they have now placed quotas where women get in. Where, again, the IITs have less than 10% women, yeah. So you have also got, quota candidates who get in, and so on and so forth. But there's a pushback. People are saying, why should we give up our slot? I got 99.99% and I don't get a seat in IIM. Somebody has got some 60% and is getting. So diversity also, and in America, there is this pushback which is beginning. Why should we sacrifice our jobs for people who are less competent than us? Yeah, there is no quota for Indians or non-Americans, anything like that. There is a general quota for women, black people, so on and so on. Is there discrimination against black people? So there are several people. So there was a recent experiment where somebody was secretly filmed, and during an interview process, about 20 people came. This man shook the hand of every white person who came, but shook the hand of only 1/3 of the black people who came. Yeah. So that's why the Americans are good. I mean, they carry out this kind of very wonderful experiments, and they try to figure out really what is happening on the ground. So there is, when you have diversity, you're going to have also pushbacks. Yeah. So what are some types of discriminatory policies or practices? Older workers may be targeted for layoff because they are highly paid. You can see that always. I think in IT now the retirement age has dropped to about 45. Yeah, people struggle to get a job. In my small apartment complex, there are only 70 apartments. I think I'm the only fellow who goes to work, I think, every day. Yeah, most people are sitting at home, or they say they're working from home. I'm not sure. But there are not too many people who, most of them are ex-former IT guys who sort of are now beyond 50 and so on and so forth. Yeah. Sexual harassment is another problem area, is another form. Sexual harassment, all of you know what it is, right? And you must be sort of concerned about it. Intimidation, bullying, ragging. Now they've come to universities as well. So we are also very cognizant about. I had a strange case the other day where one of the lady professors sort of complained that there was a professor who gave her a hamper of chocolates, unasked for, of course. And then, so do you think that is harassment? What's the point of it? Very tricky. Yeah, intention matters, and but anyway, the lady didn't take it very kindly, and she wrote a complaint. And because she said this is a case of sexual harassment, it sort of got escalated outwards, and it was pretty thoroughly investigated, and so on and so forth. Yeah, intimidation, mockery, and insults. So yeah. So exclusion, many women in finance claim they are assigned to marginal job roles or are given light workloads and don't lead to promotion. Incivility, female lawyers note that male attorneys frequently cut them off or do not adequately address their comments. So these are several examples from organizations where you have discrimination and lack of inclusion or civility and so on and so forth. Yeah. You can also talk about biological characteristics, personal characteristics that are objective and easily obtained from personal records. Variations in these can be the basis for discrimination. For example, skin color or things like that can be causes for discrimination. So I hope you got the drift of what I'm talking about. Yeah. Age. I think in several countries, age is becoming a problem. A lot of older people are. So, for example, in many places, age seems to be a problem, and definitely, say on professional IQ ships and so on and so forth. If you get very old, then people don't take you very seriously. I don't know how it is in organizations. And I once had returned from the Netherlands, and I found there was a call center name. Call center, right? You don't see too many of them now. Maybe they've become BPOs or something. This call center, I went, and they had put a board there that if you speak good English, you can join us as a call center. And since I was on 2 months of leave, while going for a walk, I approached them and said, "Can I join?" And they looked at me and said, "No, we can't take you." I said, "Why?" I speak good English. And they said, no, you're too old. Is that cause for discrimination? Yes, it is. You said that you wanted people who speak good. I fulfilled that. You can't say that I'm too old. And I was, I think, barely in my 30s. But even that was old for a call center. Yeah. So what do people say? Studies show that turnover and absenteeism rates are lower among older workers, and age is not associated with lower. So can you say that I am less productive than a younger professor? Definitely no. Yeah. Yeah. So these are interesting thoughts, but then there is definitive discrimination. And as diversity increases, the opportunities or incidents of discrimination start rising. So the end point here is that unless you can manage diversity well, so America had this serious problem because a large number of they created religious diversity quotients, and then they took people from different religions, and then you had 9/11 happen, and it was a shock to America. Yeah. And so while they had taken people based on religion, they did not know how to manage this after the Twin Towers came down, and then certain people started getting targeted, and so on and so forth. So the point here is that having these grand ideas and taking people in is all fine. Being able to manage it, being able to distinguish between surface level and deep level diversity is more important. And if you don't have mechanisms in place, then you should not be playing these games, because you can actually create problems and havoc for good word, I think, havoc for several people. Good. And I will share the PPTs. I will also leave you to read the textbook. Please do go and get yourself a textbook. I think be safe. Yeah.
What is forcing?
So I think nowadays in several multinational corporations, the DEI is appearing on your annual report. Yeah. So it might start impacting your investments, your investors. Excuse me. Your investors. How do people view your company? Yeah. The public, it's the kind of persona that you want to. So why can't I come to the class wearing shorts and a t-shirt? Yeah, I mean, I think you would find it a little strange that the dean appeared in shorts and bathroom chappals and one t-shirt and so on and so forth. Right? It is how do you manage your persona or your image, and you're supposed to play the role. So that is one part of the story. The other part of the story is how do you manage that once you start taking people. You cannot manage them. It causes problems for a lot of people. You should not have done that experiment in the first place without setting up mechanisms to manage them. Yeah. No, that is limited to what the organization believes. So let me throw this question back at you. My wife was working in an educational organization where in the interview, you're told that if in this place, you cannot bring non-vegetarian food. Is that unethical? So the owner made it very clear that this in my institution, when you come, if you bring food, it has to be vegetarian food. If you don't like it, don't join. Yeah. So these are very difficult decisions. But I think eventually you need to respect, as long as it's not unconstitutional. That's the word. Yeah. So he didn't say you have to fast for 3 days and come. He said that don't bring non-veg food when you come to my campus. So this is several people to take objection to it. So he says, feel free not to join here. But then if you say, no, I want to join here, but I will not, then it becomes something for the courts of law to decide. Again, who are we to decide whether it's right or wrong? Then the court will decide whether it is right or wrong. So for example, the university mandates that when a professor is in a classroom, you're expected to either wear a jacket or a tie. And definitely you can't wear shorts and go in chappals. Yeah. No, I'm a very old school guy. I spent 3/4 of my life in a uniform. Yeah. And I am very clear that people need to be appropriately dressed. Have I answered? Yeah. I do not appreciate people coming in boxer shorts, t-shirt, unshaven, teeth not brushed, and look as if they've just woken up. For example, I played cricket for my state, and under 19. It's called the Kuch Bihar Trophy. And I remember once our fast bowler just woke up and came, and all stuff dripping from his eyes and so on. Our captain kicked him out. Said, go have a bath and come back. Till then, the 12th man will be there. And he said, next time it happens, I'm going to throw you out. So I think in a sense, we had a code of conduct, which seems to have disappeared now. You don't have to take my word for it. You can follow your own path. Yeah. And whatever. So we had an AI conference, and we had some guys, including one guy from Google and all. And he was telling me that, Captain, if some in IT industry or startups, if they find that you're dressed like you, they won't take you seriously. So I was telling him that if you come the way you are dressed here, we don't take you seriously. So big deal. Yeah. So that's how it is. So, yeah. But here, we definitely have a dress code, and people are expected to sort of. In fact, when you do your assignment 2, when you have to make these presentations to me finally of of very difficult case studies in a group, I actually give people who are dressed in blazers, white shirts, and so on and so forth better grades. Yeah, I'm telling you upfront. Yeah, and also when you send me that video of 12 minutes, if I find underclothes hanging behind and you being badly dressed and so on and so forth, you will lose marks. Yeah, and if some people send me a video, I can't hear anything. There's a lorry going by or something. Yeah, so I urge all of you to listen carefully to your own recording before you send it to me. Yeah, I'm very kind of conservative and old school. Any other questions? No, you will be part of this group. So so you can take online classes. Your presentation for assignment 2 is online. So you will join online on Zoom. You will be in others. You will be here. I will be listening. So you can still talk to your group, and maybe you physically can't meet them, But you can still interact, right? This is an age of technology. Everything will be done by us. And it will not change. So if you don't get along with somebody in the group, what should you do? Get along. Yeah? Learn to get along. Yeah? Because this complaint about I'm not getting along and that fellow doesn't listen to me and all that stuff is actually not going to cut much. Please learn to collaborate. Leave your ego at home, get the job, be professional. And you don't have to go and drink beer with anybody, or for that matter, coffee or tea, but get the job done. Huh? Yes. So once you're stuck, you're stuck. It's like having parents. You're stuck with them for life. Married, you can still do something. So now I will play I got 2 videos which are rather interesting. We will watch them and we'll sort of briefly talk about them. So Shri Imtiaz will play those videos for us. He's been sitting patiently and listening to my gyan. Can I switch off this Imtiaz? No, wait, okay, start the video. So this is a professor from Stanford University called Bill Sutton. Very interesting video. Let's just check. Guys online, can you hear this?
The
and see
no
this?
asshole rule
Pause.
confirms what most of us already
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, we can.
know, that our work environments are plagued with assholes. Stanford professor and author Bob Sutton joins us today to let us know how to spot an asshole and what we can do to make our offices asshole-free.
Here are some facts about workplace assholes. First of all, it turns out that 1 out of 2 Americans have worked for an abusive boss. And the problem is much worse in some occupations, especially in nursing, where up to 90% of nurses report receiving weekly abuse. Fact 2, it turns out assholes can be incredibly expensive for organizations. One of the Silicon Valley firms I worked with calculated the cost of 1 asshole for 1 year, an abusive salesperson named Ethan, and when they calculated all the secretaries he ran through and other expenses, it was $160,000. In fact, 3, the reason I wrote a book on assholes is because nasty interactions pat 5 times the wallop of nice interactions. One of the most fun things that we've done with the no asshole rule is to construct a 24-item true-false test that you can take to determine if you're a certified asshole, a borderline asshole, or not an asshole at all. And in fact, we put this on Guy Kawasaki's blog, and over 100,000 people have completed it online. To give you an example of some of the items in the test, first, you were a nice person until you started working with the current bunch of creeps. Another, you take credit for the accomplishments of your team, and why not? They would be nowhere without you. Next, you constantly interrupt people because, after all, what you have to say is more important than them. Also, your jokes and teasing can get a bit nasty at times, but you have to admit it, they're pretty funny. And my favorite one, people seem to stop having fun when you show up. Let me tell you how we score the 24 items on the asshole rating self-exam. If you got 0 to 5, that's a sign that you're not an asshole at all, and perhaps you don't need the book, and certainly you'd be a civilized person to work with. If you scored 5 to 15, that's a sign that you're kind of a borderline asshole, and there are some things that you probably need help with. If you scored over 15, that's a sign to me that you're a certified asshole and you really could use some help. But don't come to me for it, because I already have enough assholes in my life and I would prefer not to meet you. So let's talk about what you can do if you're a leader or a manager and you want to implement the no asshole rule yourself. The first thing you've got to remember is that assholes breed like rabbits. So that means that what you want to do is to keep the assholes out of the hiring process and have as many civilized people involved as possible. Number 2, all firms make hiring mistakes. When you make a mistake, you want to get rid of those assholes as quickly as possible. It's Southwest Airlines. That's why they say we hire and fire on attitude. Number 3, in organizations that are serious about the no asshole rule, being an asshole is just treated as another form of incompetence. Number 4, there's an enormous amount of evidence that if you just give people a little power, they turn into insensitive jerks. So you've got to watch yourself and watch others when they get in positions of power. Number 5, it's inevitable in organizations that there's power differences between, say, the CEO and people lower down in the organization. You can't get rid of the chain of command, but but organizations that have fewer assholes do things to de-emphasize status differences. For example, not having private parking spaces and the like. Number 6, it's very important not just to have a general set of rules, but to manage the little moments, the little things that happen where the no asshole rule and other social norms live and die. So that means, just as a little example, to make it safe for the people in your work group to let you know if you're the boss when you've been a jerk. Number 7, I'm not arguing that the no asshole rule is an argument for having a bunch of wimps. What you want to do is teach people how to fight constructively, which is exactly what they do at Intel, by the way. They give all employees classes in constructive confrontation. Number 8, as ironically as it may seem, there are times when it's better to have one asshole rather than none, because if you've got an asshole, they show everybody else how not to behave so everybody understands the wrong behavior. Number 9, and this is very important, you need to find ways to link the big policies to the small decencies. So it's great to espouse the no asshole rule, but if you as a leader don't behave in the proper way and treat people with respect and apologize when you blow it, the no asshole rule will never live in your organization. And finally, in some of the most effective organizations I know, they write down the rule and are explicit about it. For example, at Google, they have the don't be evil policy, and another sort of crazy Australian organization, there's an organization called ARP, which among other things designed the Sydney Opera House. They have the no dickhead rule, and it's an integral part of how they're starting to do business. In addition to saving your organization money and helping you attract better employees, there's a new reason why you might want to implement the no asshole rule in your organization. The lawyers will get you. It turns out that a lot of states are considering anti-bullying legislation, which will mean if you allow them to flourish in your organization, you
You, sir?
So we are not able to hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear.
Okay, that's a good. I didn't say anything in that silence thing. Yeah, we'll meet after 2 weeks, and I urge all of you to start working on that. Assignment 1, I hope all of you have seen it. It will come to you by email as well. Yeah, it's there on your WhatsApp. You got 6 articles. Please start doing. The instructions are pretty clear. You're supposed to read it, summarize in your own words, 200 words each, and you come up with 200 words, which does not include the title of whatever title you give. Yeah, assignment 1 or something like that, and which will reach, you will upload on the LMS. You will send me the video of 12 minutes. How many? So you're not impressing me by making a video of 24 minutes. Yeah, I want 12-minute video, properly, professionally made. I should be able to hear, open it also. Yeah, and please make sure I can open the wonderful thing. And it doesn't ask me for access code and this, that. Yeah. So make sure that you can open it, send it to your friend, make sure he or she can open it, and then you send it to me. And like I said, please do it professionally. See that your background is all right, that you are professionally dressed, you speak clearly. And even if you copy this part A of the assignment from somebody, the part B is going to get you, where you have to make the video. Yeah. So please, so I suggest that instead of wasting your time, start working on the assignment this evening. Yeah, it carries 30 marks. Just think about it. Suppose you get 30 out of 30 in my 2 assignments, you already passed. All you need to do is to just turn up for the, that is if you're not aiming for the gold medal or something. If you're aiming for the gold medal, then do everything properly. And one thing I've noticed, all the 10 medal winners of last convocation, out of some 400 students, they had one thing in common. They did the assignment well. They did the class attendance was very regular. And all these are old people. Huh? One of the gold medalist is about 45 years old. The silver medalist is a PhD in biosciences. And so these are not young people. But one thing that sets them apart is they were serious about what they were getting out of this program. Any other questions you might have? I'm the right guy to ask all the questions. Not e-books, e-book. Yeah. You can request me, I will send it to you. No, there's no website as such. We are not mandated to give you books. However, we have a tie-up with an American publisher called Cengage. If there are adequate number of students, it comes with a subscription fee for 1 year, where you have access to about 17,000 books. And these are top class books. There is a very small amount of money that you have to pay for the subscription, which you can explore if you like. It's not mandated. Yeah. But maybe 15, 20 people come up, then we can talk to Cengage and get you access of that. Like I said, there are some books that are available with us in the e-copy, which we'll mail you if you want. Yeah. But I would suggest that go and get yourself a good hard. There are several editions available in the market. You can get yourself any edition. It works. You'll get the basic tenets of what we are talking very clearly. You have to ask. Nothing happens automatically in terms of books. You have to request. They're analytical actually. This is an individual assignment. Assignment 2, which I have not shared with you yet, is because I don't want to shock you into, so first day. So I'll let you go through this. Then I'll give you assignment 2, which you will also get soon enough, and you will also get the groups. Then you can start networking and so on. But don't network for assignment 1, because let me tell you that most professors will put your assignment through a plagiarism check, and if they find that you have copied from each other, copied from the internet, copied from somewhere else, which is very easily findable, they will grade you 0. Yeah? Copying other people's work is not appreciated at this level. So you can't read what is there in the document in the video. That's what you're asking. Yeah, explain in your own. It's like how I am teaching now. I am not just reading from the PPT. I put it on your WhatsApp. I said your email will come. Then you should immediately, right now, leave this
This is all the 6 shared. So in total, we have to make 12 minutes video. You can't make 72 minutes. Please have a thought for me. The small debrief. Yeah. What's your name? BTC. Yeah, BTC, I think one of the issues here is you are not listed as your name was discussed. I said, let us see. That explains why you are not getting. You're not officially part of the program yet. Yeah. So please go and talk to him about this one. So whoever has not received, please go and meet him immediately. So the assignment has not been made. You got? Okay, if you not got, then please go and if you have got one and not got the second one, you must get emails, okay? I think it's a red flag if you don't get emails. So you will have a little teething problem. Please, hello. Please understand that we are not a hotel, we are not a corporate, we are a university. So there's a little bit of give and take here and there, but eventually all good people exist. But go and meet Mr. Arvind. He's a little forgetful, but he's really a nice guy. Help you out. But maybe you just forgot to put your email there. So he's a very good, excellent guy. He does that. So next time he may not. Thank you. Thank you, sir.